Sorry. Pardon.
No, it was funny.
Yes, it was very funny, wasn't it?
Hey, welcome back everyone. I'm Dr. Jackie. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I make videos about mental health, psychiatry training, as well as provide commentary on how mental illness is portrayed in the media. If that's something interesting to you, like and subscribe and join the team. Just a heads up, this video is going to contain some spoilers, so if you don't want to watch it just yet, go back and watch WandaVision on Disney Plus, episode 8, and then come back to this video. If not, proceed. I think it's important for you, if you've never seen WandaVision, to know who these characters are. This is Wanda when she was younger, as well as her brother Pietro, and they just experienced a massive bombing of their hometown. This character is Agnes. She is also a witch, and this is Wanda when she's gotten older, the way that we know her in the Marvel series.
You were trapped. For how long? 2 days.
I think what would be helpful is for you to continue watching this scene with me and keeping in mind that this is based off of Wanda's memories and therefore the narrative that she's developed for herself.
So much trauma. And yet you were safe as kittens the whole time. So what I see here is a baby witch obsessed with sitcoms and years of therapy ahead of her.
I obviously have to stop here because she mentions therapy. Agnes just mentions that Wanda experienced a lot of trauma, which is clearly true. It is really common for people to think that psychiatrists only manage medications, and in some formats and settings that is the case. However, there is a very big underlying understanding of therapy and how it's used. What I just want to mention here is that Agnes is far from a therapist, so I don't want you to think that therapy is like this just because I'm using the scene to explain certain things that we do in therapy. What I appreciate Agnes knowing is that therapy takes months. Habits and your narrative and how you perceive the world is deeply ingrained and further established as you continue to develop. And so it takes more than a few sessions to address those issues that led you to seeking therapy in the first place. This is because we all utilize different defense mechanisms. Some are helpful, some aren't so helpful. This leads us to what we call getting stuck, and we then apply that defense mechanism to numerous experiences in our life. This can then affect our decision making and how and when we choose to do things in our life, and that just solidifies the way that we believe the world to be.
I don't want to go back there. I know you don't. There's good medicine, Angel. The only way forward is back.
What I like about what Agnes said about the only way forward is back is because when we continuously just push forward in our lives without making the time, because life is busy, to reflect on our decisions and our past experiences and how that influences what we're saying and doing now, we have a false sense of reality because it is based off of decisions that seemingly are out of our control rather than intentional.
Wanda, the rebellious years. Your reaction to the bombing of your civilian apartment building and the murder of your parents was to join an anti-freedom terrorist organization. We wanted to change the world.
See how Agnes kind of questions Wanda's decisions after the bombing, and the reason why Wanda tells herself that that was okay was because she wanted to change the world. It is a very specific goal, and I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but this is what Wanda has told herself about that decision. What's also interesting here is that Wanda is probably around adolescent age. If you know any adolescents or can reflect on your own adolescence, adolescence is all about novel-seeking behaviors, which means that you're looking for things that are new and exciting, and therefore they're quite adventurous and sometimes impulsive. This is developmentally appropriate as long as they have the support to make these decisions. We call this individuating, which is when an adolescent is starting that process of creating their own sense of self and making decisions based off of what they want and what their needs are.
And again. Again. Makes no sense. What happened in there?
I relate a lot to these scientists replaying the video of what happened to Wanda because sometimes you have these experiences trying to help your patients and you have no clue what is happening, why they're saying what they're saying, and at times falling into the same patterns that they've discussed has already been harmful and hurtful, but continue to fall into that. And we've all done that. It's just human nature. And I've mentioned this in a previous video. During residency training, we would record ourselves interacting with patients. Often we would be interviewing in front of an entire team, like the nurses, the other doctors, med students, residents, for everyone's learning, but that would be a little nerve-wracking if you felt like you didn't have control of the situation. Although challenging, and once you get over the fear of being judged and embarrassed for how you're doing the interview, upon reflection, it was probably one of the most beneficial things that I ever did during training.
So, little orphan Wanda got up close and personal with an infinity stone that amplified what otherwise would have died on the vine. The broken pieces of you are adding up, Buttercup. I have a theory. I need more.
I feel like I need a mug that says, I have a theory, but I need more. Being someone's doctor is kind of like this, where you have to gather data and listen to more stories about someone's life and what they thought about their experiences to be able to understand them. A lot of people walk in thinking that after sharing one experience, something that was upsetting in the past week, that I'll be able to figure everything out and provide a solution. Based off of everything that I said, it's a little bit clearer that maybe the thing that was upsetting last week might be based off of a recurring pattern of behavior. As much as society wishes that doctors had all the answers, and as much as doctors wish that they had all the answers, it's just not how it works. There are different kinds of therapy that are manualized and have a certain set of sessions and different homework and tasks for each session, but that's not how all therapy works. One way that we might understand therapy is addressing overall themes. A theme of loss is a huge one, which is something that WandaVision definitely explores, as well as something that I discussed during Queen's Gambit reaction videos as well. As these doors continuously open for Wanda during this scene with Agnes, you notice that she's having a little bit less resistance. Resistance is when we might confront a patient or we might start discussing something and we realize that it's a little too soon or a little too painful to explore. At the very beginning, her first door was something that she definitely hesitated before she walked through, and then as she continues to re-experience her past, you see that she is walking through much easier. And this is a dynamic process again.
So where are we now? The Avengers compound. It was the first home vision I ever shared. Pietro was dead, and I was in a new country. I was all alone.
Out of all the things that Wanda could remember about the Avengers compound, there are some positives and negative things, such as a huge loss that she experienced by her brother dying, as well as moving to a new country, which is a huge transition. To be necessarily a country could be moving out of the home. When college kids go to live in a dorm, for example, that's usually the first time that a kid ever lived away from home. So it's a huge transition.
Vision?
The way that she describes it is that it was her first home that Vision and her shared.
I apologize. I don't mean to intrude.
You don't?
Well, I suppose, yes, I did intend to come in here.
And now?
Well, whatever is your preference.
This back and forth between Wanda and Vision is really similar to when we first meet a patient and then continue to meet with them. You might step into a topic and need permission from the patient or the person that you're providing care. It's important to know that sometimes the power differential between patient and doctor can get in the way of treatment. Because thoughts and feelings are difficult to talk about, and most likely it took a long time to even pursue therapy and be in therapy, this might sometimes lead to someone feeling like they shared too much. We have a saying that you don't open a box that you can't close. And so it's really important that we're aware of the questions that we're asking, that the patient is ready to address those things, but knowing that before the session closes and you might not see them again for another week or another 2 weeks, that this is a box that can be closed, or a box that they can carry around that was obviously filled with whatever trauma or difficult conversation that they had been walking around with in this nicely packaged box that had remained unopened so that they could continue living their lives.
It is funny because the grievous injury man just suffered.
No, he's not really injured.
How can you be certain?
It's not that kind of show.
I appreciate Vision's curiosity here. Back in residency, I had an awesome supervisor who, when I first started therapy and I was really scared about what question to ask next or how to provide validation and when to provide validation, he would just tell me to stay curious. When you stay curious, you are able to quell all the assumptions that you might have about a patient, about their experiences, and you can stay more open-minded.
Wanda, I don't presume to know what you're feeling, but I would like to know. Should you wish to tell me, should that be of some comfort to you?
I think therapy has gotten romanticized or idealized in society where people who have the money or resources go to therapy just to vent about how their day is. Do I wish that it was more available for people who don't have the resources or money? Yes. And that's how it really should be. But therapy is extremely hard work, and people romanticizing it and making it seem like you're too weak, it plays into the narrative that everybody has kind of developed about seeking mental health treatment, that people who need therapy are weak. People who seek treatment to discuss the most painful things that have happened in their lives or things that they keep on messing up, things that they feel like they don't seem to ever get right. That takes a lot of bravery, courage, strength to keep on doing something, sticking to something that really holds the mirror straight up to your face. That is not weakness in my book.
Makes you think that talking about it would bring me comfort.
Oh, see, I read that...
The only thing that would bring me comfort is seeing him again.
Through the years, I've trained my ears to watch out for these generalizations that we all use, like only, always, never. It's limiting and has been the source of a lot of pain and discomfort for humans for many years. Much of therapy is being able to tolerate all the grayness in life, whereas only and always and never kind of swing us to one aspect of thinking. We might want to come a little bit closer and edge towards sometimes, not always, maybe. When Vision says, well, I read somewhere, this is funny just because when you first start out doing this, it's kind of true where your only experience really is based off of things that you had read about therapy. So it's just funny to listen to him say that because he's clearly out of his depth in how to support Wanda, but really wants to.
It's just like this wave washing over me again and again. It knocks me down, and when I try to stand up, it just comes for me again. It's just going to drown me.
The way Wanda describes grief here is a beautiful way of describing grief and sorrow. The way that she describes it as coming in waves. Often that is how grief looks for people, and it could not be just the week after or the day after. It could be months, years after. For children, the concept of death and loss and dying, although they do appreciate it more than we adults give them credit for, they might experience grief in a more prolonged manner. This also develops differently as they continue to experience their own lives and their own transitions into adulthood. Every time that there is a life milestone, they might experience grief in a different way. Take, for example, a child that had lost a parent. Every milestone that they might encounter through the years, like graduation from elementary school, high school, colleges, they might experience a sense of loss and grief and have to readdress that at every phase of life.
Because it can't all be sorrow, can it? I've always been alone, so I don't feel the lack. I've never experienced loss because I've never had a loved one to lose.
When Vision confronts Wanda about her loss of Pietro, her brother, it is a big reframe of the way that she had been perceiving the event.
What is grief, if not love persevering?
From my first Queen's Gambit video, we talk a little bit about mental status exam and affect, and you can see that Wanda's affect is switching here the way that he had reframed it for her, because there's that sense of safety between Wanda and Vision that she's able to reframe it for herself as well. That completely changes her narrative.
What happened when he wasn't there to pull you back from the darkness, Wanda?
I can't do this anymore.
Come on, Wanda. You're on the precipice. We're right!
So this is a good example of how not to do therapy, where you throw somebody into a very traumatic experience and memory and force them to talk about it. Going back to that power differential, if you're that person seeking therapy, you're going to feel inclined to share and fill that space and provide the answer that the therapist is looking for. And as a therapist, you're really hoping to get the data or the information so that you could figure it out. In the desire to fix things, you are opening that box that you might not be able to close, even though the intentions are really good. Whenever you do something, especially as a provider, checking in with yourself and figure out why you're feeling a sense of needing to push, and is it to satisfy your own needs? It's not about your needs.
So to recap, parents dead, brother dead, vision dead.
What Agnes was just saying in terms of let's recap, that is a very useful technique that we often use, where in your own words or their own words, explain to them what you had just heard or understood. Hopefully you found this video interesting. I really love the finale, so I'm excited about how they're going to continue addressing this storyline in Doctor Strange 2. I have other videos just like it. I will put it in the eye up top and link it in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts were on WandaVision in general, or my understanding or portrayal of therapy through this scene. I also have an Instagram, Datora Jackie. You can send me a message over there. Until next time.